Hello, hello, hello. This is Steve Sanson and Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. We have two guests today. The first guest is going to be George Assad, who's the Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge, Department 3, and Veterans in Politics endorsement recipient. And then our second guest is going to be Caroline Edwards, who's the president of Clark County School Board trustee, to take the place of the superintendent that school superintendent that didn't show up.
How's it going, Steve?
Hey, how you doing, Jim?
Good.
So you believe the school superintendent didn't show up?
Yeah, that's
after a month of trying to they firm up the date, and that they didn't firm up the date, and I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. The school superintendent not being accountable to dates. I don't know how that works for students in the Clark County School
according
District.
to the communication officer, she said that they put it in, and they haven't got back with her, and several weeks go by, and all of a sudden when I blasted out telling everybody that he's going to be on, all of a sudden they pay attention to it.
So you're telling me, Steve, it might be a staffing problem? I thought the Clark County School District was overstaffed.
I don't know,
wasn't that one of the problems? That's why they're over budget?
You know what I asked them? I said, could I have a principal if you can't get me the superintendent? Because I wanted somebody that's actually works in the school with the kids. And
right.
They didn't even have a principal to give me.
Huh.
Yeah. I just
nice
don't
of
understand. You got any rants?
Yeah, actually, my rant today revolves around our whole last week we talked about the operation going on in Libya.
Right.
Okay, and all I've heard all week long and even last week is just all these conservative Republicans, which, I'm a registered Republican.
Right.
And
You are?
Yeah. And I tend to be a conservative Republican. But what's frustrating me, and I did not vote for President Obama, but he is the president of the United States.
Right.
And while I'm not going to say that I agree with every decision he's made with this Libya situation, I think he acted a little late, and there's other things. Right. But he's the president.
Right.
You can't say that you are for the troops and then constantly rail against the commander-in-chief about all these things that he's done wrong. There's a lot of things that President Bush did wrong, leading us up going into Iraq.
Am I hearing that from you, Jim? Because you used to rant on President Obama every week.
And when I think he's wrong, I still will. Uh-huh. But the fact of the matter is, he's your commander-in-chief, and he ordered us to have a military action in Libya. Right. Therefore, you can't justify every single mistake that George Bush made.
Right.
And then rail against Barack Obama
Is
for
it senior,
every single
senior
thing
or junior
made.
Bush?
I'm talking about Junior Bush.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you just can't do that. And I'm getting really tired of the Sean Hannitys of the world out there every single day. You're demeaning. He's your president, whether you like it or not.
Glenn Beck is the one that annoys me, though.
Yeah, he's a little. I'm just going to be nice and say he's eccentric. That's the nice way of saying it.
And now Syria's having issues.
Syria, Yemen's having issues. Now there's stuff breaking out in Jordan. Even some people are saying that Saudi Arabia is going to be an issue.
That whole Middle East is going to go up in flames, or are they going to change their policy?
Maybe
women could start driving vehicles and voting in Saudi Arabia now.
Well, first they even have to be able to be allowed to walk next to a man and not 2 paces behind to the left, or sit in the front seat of a vehicle would be a good start.
I don't know what is Middle Eastern men scared of women?
I don't know. I really don't.
Maybe George Assad could comment on that question.
Maybe
you could ask me about the Constitution, about law, but I know nothing about that Muslim culture and attitude towards women. I'm a Christian. And thank God my family was able to escape there back in 1953.
What country are we talking about? Judge?
Syria. Yes. And they escaped after the churches got burned down, and my father returned back to Boston, where he was from, after he served in the military for a period of time, Reserve, National Guard, retiree.
And Christian is a very small population in the
about
Middle East.
5. Well, in Syria at that time it was about 5%.
5%.
Lebanon, it's about 50%.
That much?
Yes. but throughout the rest of the Middle East, I believe it's
Right.
anywhere from 3 to 5%.
Do you have any more rants, Jim?
Other than
Give the president a chance. Give him a break. You know, he may be able to topple Gaddafi through the NATO forces, but I think it's way too early to criticize him. Yes, he should have acted sooner. I think everybody agrees on that, but I think you have to give him a chance. He is the commander-in-chief, and if you support the troops, you need to support the president, at least give him the credit that he did take some action. And, you know, I mean, if we're going to go around giving speeches in Cairo telling people that democracy is the way to go and we believe in liberty and freedom and we want to spread that concept throughout the world, the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, that's what we live by. You know, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. If we want the rest of the world to follow that principle, I think we're going to have to do more coalition action like we have here. We can't go it alone. We can't police the whole world. But you're right. There's Syria. There's Saudi Arabia. There's Yemen, Bahrain. Actions in South America. There are countries in South America that are striving for freedom.
I thought Bahrain was already westernized because I've been there.
I don't know, but I know there's rioting in the streets there from what I heard on the news the other day. But South America, the point I'm trying to get at is these types of moves towards freedom and liberty are going to blossom throughout the world. Once you give people a little taste of freedom, it becomes contagious, and they want it. Yeah. And so we're going to have to join forces with NATO and other organizations to stand behind our words. If people want to go in the streets and march and act towards a move for freedom and liberty, and then we should support those folks, because we can't just talk the talk. We have to walk the walk. He went to Cairo, and he said, we are with you. We're for freedom. We're for liberty. And then they went for it. And for a while in Egypt, he was nowhere to be found.
Right.
And he should have supported those folks right away, I believe.
Well, and that's one thing you can't put a price on is freedom.
It's priceless.
And you know all about freedom, Judge Assad, because you have the power to lock people up for a few days and take away their freedom.
Well, yes, that type of freedom. Yes, there's all kinds of freedom.
All right. Well,
Judge, I do want to. I want to ask you a question since you got into it a little bit, and I wanted to talk about what. Do you know much about? There's been a lot of talk. The big argument is how much authority the president really has as far as declaring war or not declaring war, and there seems to be this divide between a lot of people in Congress. Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution makes the president the commander-in-chief, and he can, if there's an imminent threat to the United States, then he can order military action immediately. Then you have Article 1, Section 2 that says that Congress is the only ones that can actually declare war on another nation. Mm-hmm. Then you also have the War Powers Act of 1973. So it seems that these members of Congress can kind of pick and choose or interpret these articles of the Constitution in order to make their own arguments. You have like Dennis Kucinich out there saying what the president has done is actually an impeachable offense. You had certain people saying the same thing about President Bush. For our listeners, what is your knowledge of those separate articles?
Well, first of all, I'm not a constitutional scholar and expert, but President Lincoln did the same thing. Right. There are emergency situations that will arise when Congress may not be in session, and the president, as commander-in-chief, has the power to act immediately for the country's best interest. Typically, when Congress resumes, then the president goes back, as Lincoln did, and will receive the approval of Congress to take a particular action. Right. So there's always that conflict between the War Powers Act and the commander-in-chief language in the Constitution. Congress does have the ultimate power to control the purse strings, and that's what the founders designed the system to work as. So the people, through their elected representatives in the House of Representatives, can control the purse strings, and so they can defund a war, and that's how you would be able to undercut the commander-in-chief's powers under the War Powers Act or as commander-in-chief.
Okay. Well, we never really have any of our guests get into a rant, but I think you're the first. Is he the first?
Yeah.
No, I think Steve Ross got into a.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, Steve, yeah, Councilman Ross. Yeah.
But anyways, let's take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to come back with Judge George Assad. He's going to tell us why he should be retained and a little bit about him. And we're also going to take, I believe we have a call on the line too. So we're going to take a commercial break and come back to Judge George Assad, Las Vegas Municipal Court, Department 3.
While growing up, I've always asked my family, who is my father? I was told the name of a man. When I became older, I looked for this man and found him. He thought that I was his son as well, but after a DNA test, it was discovered that my family was lying to me all my life. I pressured my family to give me the real identity of my father. I then became suspicious and took my grandfather's DNA. After I buried my grandfather, 2 days later I discovered that my grandfather was in fact my biological father. I questioned myself and asked, what is my purpose on this earth? I should have never been conceived. But when I look at my 4 children, I knew that everything happens for a reason. This is Steve Sanson. Find your identity.
And we are back. Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. And I'd like to let everybody know that we're in early voting right now. You should go to early voting, and everybody should go on to our website at veteransinpolitics.com, VETERANSINPOLITICS, right? Did I do that right?
Yep.
.com, and take a look at our endorsement winners and take a look at the interviews that's on YouTube as well. But anyways, without further ado, we're going to go to Judge George Assad. Judge George Assad, who was involved in a rant earlier today, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself.
Well, Steve, I've been here in Las Vegas for about 35 years. I've been a judge for the past 9 years. I was appointed by Mayor Oscar Goodman and then City Councilman Larry Brown, and the unanimous approval of the City Council. And I've enjoyed the job very much. It's very rewarding and very challenging at the same time. Been blessed and fortunate to have been endorsed by every major law enforcement association in Las Vegas, as well as Veterans in Politics, an endorsement I'm very proud to receive. Having come from a military family, that means a lot to me. And also Seniors United, Citizens for Responsible Government. I've been involved in a tremendous amount of volunteer work, and that's very rewarding. I think judges should be involved in the community. I do a lot of work with Trial by Peers. I started a Kids in Court program to bring in middle school children and teach them a little bit about the Constitution and government and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I think we need more education with our young children in that area. I've been involved with Little League Baseball, Girl Scouts. My niece is 11 years old. She's in the Girl Scouts. Also, Payback, an organization called Professionals and Youth, building a coalition which professional people and firemen, police officers will go into the schools and talk to the kids about careers and how one could become a police officer or a judge or a lawyer or what have you, a doctor. So it's been a very rewarding job. I love it. We have the happiest mayor in the universe. I think I'm one of the happiest judges in the universe. To be in my position after having been a refugee, as we discussed earlier, from Syria, coming to this country when I was 10 months old, grew up in a very poor family, had to work and struggle through junior high school, all the way through college and then law school. To be part of the third branch of government is a tremendous honor and it's a privilege. That's all I can tell you.
Well, before we start asking you questions, let's take that caller. Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there?
Does that make sense with what you're reading?
Hello, caller?
Hello? Okay, we're ready for you.
Caller, are you there?
Hello?
Yes. Caller, do you hear me? Is she not hearing? Is she not hearing us? Hello?
Hello?
Okay, so you hear me?
I hear you, yes. Thank you.
Okay, because I was like yelling out a few times and I didn't get a response. You have a question for Judge George Assad?
I do, and I did miss the last few minutes of the interview. I just wanted to know how many years he's been a judge and what made him interested in that career.
I've been on the bench for 9 years, and you have to be a lawyer, of course, first before you can be a judge here in Las Vegas. And I've been interested in becoming a judge because I'm very blessed and very fortunate to have been able to become a lawyer in the first place. So what better way to give something back to the community and the country than to serve in the judicial branch of government?
Wonderful. And how many years have you been a judge?
9 years.
9 years. I noticed on your flyer you have quite a few endorsements. What are those from? Who are those from, I should say?
Well, I don't mean to repeat myself, Steve, but the Asian Chamber of Commerce has endorsed me. The Urban Chamber of Commerce has endorsed me. The Latin Chamber of Commerce, I'm fortunate to have received that endorsement as well as Veterans in Politics, Citizens for Responsible Government, Seniors United, and the Metropolitan Police Department Protective Association, the Police Managers, Captains, and Supervisors Association, the Southern Nevada Conference of Police and Sheriffs, Nevada State Law Enforcement Association, Clark County Police Association, Henderson Police, North Las Vegas Police, and several others. I don't have time to go through the whole list.
Wow, that's quite impressive. And one more question. Can you just tell me what you enjoy most about what you're doing as a judge?
The most rewarding part about it is being able to help people. I started the first ever drug court, as you might recall, Steve, and we were able to save a lot of babies who would have been born as crack babies or meth babies to women who are addicted to drugs. By intervention and counseling, those babies were born drug-free. That's an extremely rewarding feeling to have. Also saved a lot of families, just people who were involved with drugs and alcohol, put their families back together. It's been very rewarding. That part of the job I really enjoy.
That makes a big difference. Well, thank you so much for answering my questions, and you definitely have my vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
Judge, there was after we did our interview with you, there was a blogger or a RJ reporter that did a short column on you about the survey of judges. Do you want to comment on that a little bit?
Yes, Steve. I believe the survey was about 100 or so lawyers out of maybe 3,000 or 4,000 lawyers that we have in the Clark County Bar Association. And the survey was probably conducted by mostly criminal defense lawyers. I checked on that after the program, checked with the city attorney's office. There was maybe 4 prosecutors that voted out of the 100. So just to correct the record, possibly 4 out of the 100 were prosecuting attorneys. The other 94, 95 or so were probably all criminal defense attorneys. You have to be able to practice in that judge's courtroom to be in that survey, to be able to participate in that survey. So the only prosecutors would be the ones in the Las Vegas City Attorney's Office, because those are the only prosecutors that we have. And the rest of the folks would have to be criminal defense attorneys that practice in Las Vegas Municipal Court. So it's a survey of about 100 lawyers out of maybe 3,000 or 4,000 in the Clark County Bar. My feeling was it wasn't a very accurate reflection of a judge's capabilities or abilities, because the real surveys for me come from the victim advocate groups, court personnel that sees a judge every day, and from the police officers who are in the courtroom every day. And when it comes to those surveys, I score very, very well. I've been awarded recognition and plaques by the Southern Nevada Domestic Violence Task Force and also by Stop DUI, Sandy Heverly's group, which has recognized me for my proactive approach towards handling domestic violence cases and drunk driving cases, as well as I've previously mentioned, every law enforcement agency in Southern Nevada has endorsed me. None of the 5 opponents that I have, I believe, have even one law enforcement endorsement. They may have one, but I'm not aware of it.
Well, Judge Assad, that leads me into my first question. When we were doing our interviews, I noticed that one of your opponents, I believe it was Chris Davies, said that one of the reasons why he was running, he was kind of vague on it. He said that he actually wasn't really that big into wanting to be a judge. He was just running basically because he thought that there was an abuse of power by yourself. And you didn't respond to that in the interview, and I found that kind of interesting. What do you have to say to that individual?
He's never been in my courtroom, so I don't know what he means by the abuse of power. I have no idea what he's referring to.
Well, I think a lot of people, because of, let's just go to judicial temperament a little bit. A lot of people, because of your upbringing, because you did have it tough, because you have overcome so many obstacles in your life, lots of times individuals that have accomplished as much as you have and have overrun that tend to, from the bench, not understand when a person just makes a mistake rather than it's like, hey, you know what? I had it tough too. There's no excuses. You broke the law. You didn't just make a mistake. Mm-hmm. So maybe that leads them to a little more of a heavy-handed approach to the judicial system. How would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I welcome anybody to come into my courtroom, and I've invited many reporters to come into the courtroom when they want to ask a question about X, Y, or Z. Steve came into the courtroom and observed, and I commend him for that, and your organization for actually sending people in and observing judges on the bench. I think it's a wonderful thing to do. It's kind of like, otherwise it's like criticizing a movie when you haven't seen the movie. Right. You need to see the movie first before you can criticize the movie. As far as your question goes, excuse me, I believe a judge should listen to litigants patiently and courteously, first and foremost. Then you should consider what you've heard very carefully and wisely. And then when you decide a particular issue or a fact or the decision ultimately in the case, you should do that with fairness, impartiality, and objectivity. And those are the three guiding forces that I try to follow every time I'm hearing a case. I like to think of myself as one of the most compassionate judges around. First offense, drunk driving, or battery, domestic violence, or drug possession case, I will automatically give that person a chance to go into counseling, probation, to get rehabilitated. If they commit the same offense a second time, I still give them another chance, more counseling, more rehabilitation, probation. It's only after the third or fourth time that some jail time is imposed. And we can assess a 180-day jail term. But typically, I'm going to go 30 days or 20 days or 45 days or 60 days. And even when I order someone to jail for 30 days, they only do 2/3 of the time. They're out in 20 days. They might already have 5 days credit for time served, so they're going to be out in about 15 days. So you can't put everybody in jail. That's why I started the first ever drug court program. Right. We have to have facilities and programs in place to treat people who have drug addictions and other addictions, alcohol addiction as well. They're not really getting the counseling and the treatment and the education that they need by going to jail. So I'm a big proponent of specialty courts and giving people treatment and counseling and using jail as just an absolute ultimate last resort.
Well, Judge, one of the things that I wanted to say when we were doing our interview that was surprising, I mean, I was very, very impressed by your answer when you were asked, should judges be elected or appointed? Now, the easy answer when you're in front of a panel that's going to endorse you in an election would be to say, oh, of course I think judges should be elected. Mm-hmm. You, on the other hand, said that you weren't necessarily thrilled with judges being elected. Can you speak to that a little bit more for us?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And not only am I not thrilled about it, I just think it's not what the Founding Fathers had in mind. If you believe in the Constitution and want to interpret the Constitution, not necessarily as a strict constructionist, but as someone who is a textualist, someone who looks at the text of a particular document and tries to interpret what those words literally mean, when you read Federalist 78 by Alexander Hamilton, it's clear that Madison, who was the father of the Constitution, who introduced the Bill of Rights to the basic portion of the Constitution, would not ratify the Constitution, the 7 articles, without incorporation of the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights. And Hamilton and John Jay, the 3 main framers of the Constitution, the ones that wrote so extensively in the Federalist Papers, they wanted judges to be completely independent and autonomous and not political. And the reason for that is they did not want judges to be involved with the political arena. Right. They left that for the executive branch and the legislative branch. They were specific. They created the federal scheme, which is what we have now, and it works very, very well. We have a federal bench throughout the country, an appellate bench as well, that are not subject to the political changing winds of the time. Right. And that system works very well. I think that's why our system of government has succeeded, why this experiment in democracy that we've had for the last 230 years has been successful, why what Abraham Lincoln called us as the last great hope on earth for mankind, why this experiment in social democracy has worked, because we have had an independent judiciary. That one factor alone, I think, is in a superb military. But when you talk about an independent judiciary and an independent and a strong military to enforce the principles in the Constitution, that is what has made our country so successful and strong. Now, when you take judges and you put them in the political arena and you have them out there asking for votes and endorsements and financial assistance, you're kind of perverting the third branch of government, in my opinion. It was on a referendum in the last election. The voters turned it down. I respect that. It is what it is. So we're out here campaigning. I've been walking and knocking on doors and asking for votes the last 4 weekends. So that's our system.
Judge, you made national news, and before I even go into that, I know when you filed for re-election, there was one other person that filed against you, and then after you made national news, all of a sudden 4 more individuals jumped into the race, and I get phone calls and I get emails on both sides of the coin, and some of the phone calls I get says that the judge's adult son, and I put that word adult in there. Adult son broke the law. That's because the judge was a bad parent. Okay. now before I even let you answer, and I'm gonna just throw my little personal feelings into that. I have 4 kids. Okay, my oldest son, I didn't have him from his mom until he was 13 years old. My other son, I didn't have him until he was 10 years old. My daughter, I never had her until she was 16 years old. Okay, and if anybody knows anything about psychology and therapy and child development, they should know that a child develops between birth and 5 years old. That's going to make them whoever they are the rest of their lives. And I'm sure that your son wasn't living with you through all of his upbringing. I'm sure that he probably was living with mom. So mom was the main custodial parent over your son. But your son did something when he was 29 years old. Does that hold you responsible for what he did? I know my 18-year-old daughter did something by going out with this individual whose father turned out to be a mob hitman. And that mob hitman was at my front door. Was it my fault that my 18-year-old daughter did something? No, it was her fault. She's an adult. She did it. But I handled the situation. Situation is gone. But for people to criticize you because what your 29-year-old son did, I think that's out of line. I think that has nothing to do with you. Once the child turns 18 years old and on, whatever that child does, that's child responsibility. And I don't think that you should be personally held accountable for what your 29-year-old son did. Now, would you like to answer that question?
Well, I'll just simply say I think my son or whoever, if someone is guilty of committing a crime, they should pay the price. They have to be held accountable, and they should be sent to jail and pay the price. That's first and foremost. To answer your question directly, you're right. His mom and I separated when he was about a year and a half old. She took him back to Colorado, where she was from originally. She married a fella, maybe a year later. His name was Carleo, and that's the name that my son took and has had for his 29 years. And he came out to Las Vegas to go to college about a year and a half or so ago. And you're right, I didn't raise him. He is my biological son, but I had no input in his upbringing other than a few weeks in the summer for visitation, Christmas visitation. I would spend a week or so up there in Colorado with him. And maybe Thanksgiving, we would have him out in Las Vegas for a week at Thanksgiving. But, he is my son biologically, and I feel for him as any father would. It's an unfortunate situation that he got addicted to heroin and painkillers, prescription painkillers, which oxycodone is, my understanding, it's synthetic heroin or synthetic morphine. It's a highly addictive drug. And whatever he's found guilty of, he should pay the price.
Okay. With that, let's take a caller. Caller, are you out there?
Yes, I am. I just want to commend Judge Assad, who has done a great job as a municipal court judge. I mean, he's been tough on crime. He's been fair. We're lucky in the city of Las Vegas to have someone that is so dedicated. And I know that, the conversation as far as his son has taken a lot of publicity, whether it's on the national media or locally. And it just seems that they make such a big deal about that. And as the judge just indicated, he doesn't have control over his son of what he does or doesn't do. And I think they need to stick to the facts of that he's been on the bench and that he's been tough on crime. And this day and age, that's what we need, is a judge that is tough on crime and is fair and is going to work hard and diligent like Judge Assad has done on his term on the bench. So I just want to commend Judge Assad for what a great job he's done.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Judge, do you believe in Veterans Court?
Oh, absolutely. I believe in a lot of specialty courts. I started the first ever drug court, and I certainly believe in a Veterans Court because they have special needs and special issues as a result of serving in Vietnam with post-traumatic stress disorder, Agent Orange, Gulf War, Gulf II, Operation Desert Storm, and so forth and so on. Our veterans have given their lives for our country, and the least we could do is address them through the criminal justice system in a way that's fair and equitable and compassionate.
Okay. Do you have anything more for Judge Assad before we let him go?
No, the only thing I want to say is thank you, Judge. Now I won't call myself a strict constructionalist anymore. I'm a textualist. So thank you very much for
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge, for coming on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, folks, that's Judge George Assad, who is the Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge, Department 3. And he's asking, and we're also asking for you to go to the polls and reelect Judge Assad back to the bench. He's been endorsed by Veterans in Politics, and early voting is right now. So go to the voting booth and vote for Judge Assad to retain his seat as Las Vegas Municipal Court Judge, Department 3. We'll be back momentarily with Caroline Edwards, President of Clark County School Board Trustees.
This public service announcement is brought to you by Veterans in Politics International. The Veterans in Politics mission is to teach, educate, organize, and awaken our veterans and their families to select, support, and vote intelligently for a better world and to protect ourselves from our own governments and a culture of corruption and to be the political voice for those in other groups that do not have one.
There are too many homeless veterans and more help is needed from the VA. Every veteran service organization post should adopt a local homeless veteran.
The funding of VA medical centers is inadequate, and building a VA hospital in southern Nevada is moving at a slow pace. The budget has been flatlined for too many years. The VA is too quick to deny claims and too slow to help veterans gather records in support of claims.
Local politicians ignore veterans and their issues. They perceive a lack of organization among their local veterans and that it won't hurt them at election time. Veterans too often vote party, not veteran issues. All veterans should vote in every election.
The news media give inadequate coverage to veteran issues and events. You must send letters to the editor and voice this concern.
Please contact your members of Congress and Senate and urge them to co-sponsor key legislation in supporting our veterans.
Please support Veterans in Politics. And to get more information, go to www.veteransinpolitics.com.
What are you doing online?
I'm checking out the belly dance class we took last week.
Where's it at?
TakeBackYourBelly.com.
That's right.
We worked our arms.
We worked our abs.
We worked so hard and had a blast. No matter what, your shape or size, come belly dance, you'll be surprised. For class schedule and location, log on to TakeBackYourBelly.com or call 219-3151.
Are you a business owner struggling during these economic times? Please listen up. How would you like to put your business and services in front of every resident and business in the Las Vegas Valley for less than a penny per home? Yes, that's right. I said less than 1 cent per home and business. And how would you like to have a dynamic and exciting online presence with the major search engines? How about an online video for your business and a fully optimized website with absolutely no setup fee? Hi, my name is George. If you are interested in these and other services that can make your phone ring with clients and prospects, then call me at 702-296-8394. Just call George at 702-296-8394. Thank you.
Americans have been fooled by politicians about illegal immigration. They make you think that if you bring up this topic, you are a racist. Did you know that America is the only country on this planet that does not enforce its federal immigration laws? For the fear of being called a racist, I am for legal immigration. I was born on the island of Jamaica, became an American citizen, served 12 years in the U.S. military, served in Desert Storm, and received a Presidential Unit Citation, National Defense Medal, and Marine Corps Commendation. Our immigration laws serve a purpose. I understand that this country was founded on immigration, but there is a wrong way and a right way. I'm here to tell you that illegal immigration is breaking our federal laws. Why don't you call me a racist? This is Steve Sanson.
This is Jim Jonas asking you to listen to Veterans in Politics. Veterans in Politics is a weekly broadcast internet talk show hosted by myself, Jim Jonas, and Steve Sanson, president of Veterans in Politics Incorporated. That airs every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. at www.vegasallnetradio.com. Veterans in Politics' sole purpose is to teach, educate, and inform veterans on issues and the candidates that will affect them. Too many politicians say they support veterans and their issues, but their actions tell a different story. Here at Veterans in Politics, we will expose these politicians by giving them a chance to come in and explain their actions to veterans so veterans can truly make informed decisions. Listen every Saturday to stay informed and to hold politicians accountable for their votes.
Well, we are back. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. We just had a little heart-to-heart with Judge Assad. What do you think about him?
Yeah, Judge Assad, he's a very impressive man. Like you said, I was impressed with him as soon as he talked about the judges shouldn't be elected. Somebody running for office had said that, honest. He's got a lot of integrity to him, so I like him a lot.
Yeah. But, my personal feel that I believe that judges should be elected. Unless there's a vacancy during the term, then the justice judges is filled by the county commission, and the district judges is filled by the governor.
Yeah, we're pretty much in agreement on that. If you start appointing judges, then it's good old boy network takes.
I really didn't want to get into that debate. That's my personal opinion. But we have Carol Lynn Edwards, who's the president of Clark County School Board Trustees. And we have Carol Lynn on a few times already.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have her just make her part of her hosting of the show.
Oh, yeah. Great. Want to see your ratings go down?
Wow. Carolyn, I've known you've given us a bio about yourself, but could you just tell us a little bit about yourself for the other listeners that haven't listened?
Where do I even start? I've lived in Las Vegas for 19 years. I moved here to raise my children. Both of them gone through the Clark County School District. I have a master's in social work, and I'm on the school board.
Why do you think you're president?
Well, I was vice president last year, so that sort of was a
You're supposed to automatically move up?
No, but I'm the most senior member of the board at the moment.
Okay. There's a federal grant that came about that's been in the papers, and it talks about getting rid of the staff at the 4 schools that are not reaching up to par.
Right.
And everybody has to, all the teachers and the administrators have to reply for their jobs.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a federal grant. It's called a School Improvement Grant. We call them STIG grants. And it's part of Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan's plan for improving schools. So if a school has been low performing for 5 years or more, there are 4 ways that you can apply for a SIG grant. One is a turnaround school where you get rid of the principal if they've been there 3 years or more. You get rid of all the staff, and half the staff can come back. They can all apply back, but only up to half can return. And then, in a way for the new principal to create a new team with the same vision, moving forward in a direction that will improve student achievement. The second one, I forget the name of the second, but it's similar to a turnaround school, but you don't necessarily have to have all of your staff reapplied. The other 2 we really can't do in the state of Nevada. One is close the school. Probably can't do that. And the other is to close the school and open it as a charter, and we can't do that. So
don't you think that might be a little drastic? What about the teachers union? Don't they have are they on board with this?
Yep, teachers union's been involved every step of the way.
Wow.
Nobody's losing their job. What you have to understand is they're not losing their job. They're just not going to be teaching at that particular school. And it really is a way to focus a school on teamwork and moving in all paddling in the same direction. But sometimes you just have a school where it isn't gelling,
right.
And you just want to be able to try to create that.
So I have the question towards that is if you already have a bad set of people educating or trying to educate our students that are not really educating them, why move them around the system? Why don't just get rid of them?
We're not saying they're bad people. What we're saying is that this group of people hasn't been working in the same direction, that they work at odds to one another. They may be doing fine with their children, or they may do fine in a different setting with a different principal, with different peers, or with a different population of kids. So for whatever reason, it's not working. This is an opportunity. I'll tell you, we have higher achievement in our newer schools where a principal gets to pick their whole team. When you bring a principal into a school where all the teachers are already there, it's a challenge to get everybody moving in the same direction, especially if you want to change something up. So people are a little resistant to change.
How many people are we talking about? How many employees?
I don't know. It depends on the school. I'm sure high schools have more employees than elementary schools.
Is Western High School one of those?
Western High School, Chaparral,
All right, let's
Mojave.
take Western for example. How many staff and educators are in that school?
I don't have that data in front of me, so I don't know. I would assume
ballpark?
It's in the neighborhood of 60 teachers, but it's all the staff that has to reapply, from your janitor.
Even your janitor?
Sure, everybody has to reapply.
The toilets are not being done correctly, Jim. Wow.
Well, no, but think about it. You're all positions in a school. Those people can all contribute to educating a child. And so when my son was in elementary school, the custodian at lunchtime, when he was walking around cleaning tables, talking to the kids, he would give kids math problems. If I bought something for $4.61 and gave the guy $5, how much change should I get?
Right.
And the kids would, so everybody can be a part of the learning team.
I got you. There was, you mentioned earlier that none of the jobs are at risk, but there was an article in the RJ saying that nearly 2,500 school jobs are at risk. What do you think they mean by that?
Well, that's a whole different conversation. I was talking specifically about SIG grants.
Okay.
If we're going to talk about the budget cuts, there could be job losses with budget cuts, but those losses will occur when we do a RIF, a reduction in force. Those losses will occur according to contract. So it's usually seniority.
But isn't there a lot of children in one class per teacher already? So if we're cutting more, wouldn't that really risk educating our students?
We're going to be increasing class size. That's part of the budget plan. Right. I have the budget in front of me. We approved this in concept on Thursday night, but it includes increasing class size in grades 1 through 3 by 3 students, grades 4 and 5 by 5 students, and grades 6 through 12 by 7 students. It's going to be disastrous.
Are we going to go to? Sorry, Steve, didn't mean to interrupt. What about what about? Because I heard there's some idea out there about going to. Well, I've heard this idea floated for years, but going to a 4-day school week.
4-day school week. We should have 6 days for those kids.
Yeah, we should have 6 days for those kids, and we should have a longer school day. We're going backwards in everything that we should be doing. But a 4-day school week really isn't going to be as cost savings here as it would be in rural counties, and there are a number of rural counties have gone to 4 days, and they are realizing some savings. But your savings are really only in your bus drivers. You still have to pay the teachers. You have to have a longer day those 4 days. You pay the teachers the same amount, same for all the other staff. So really it's in busing and in the electricity to heat or cool the building. But the issue for this community is, what does that do to the community? And we're already a very stressed community, and now you have parents who have to get child care for an extra day that they didn't have to do before. And so in some ways, we think that will be more harmful to the community in relationship to the benefit we would realize.
Do you think the economy is playing a factor on educating our kids? Because the reason why I say this is because a lot of people are cutting different things within their household budget, and one of the things they might want to cut would be privatizing, sending their children to private school, and probably want to see if they could grow in the public school system. Do you think that the economy is playing a role in the way our children are being educated? And do you see a larger percentage of children being put into the school system since the economy went bad?
We actually do think we're seeing a little bit of an increase in our enrollment due to people pulling kids out of the private schools for that exact reason, because families can't afford now to pay the tuition they were paying before. But it's not a huge factor. I don't think that's a huge factor. Our enrollment only grew 500 students this year, and the year before it dropped 2,000, which is a drop in the bucket out of a 310,000 population school district. So we think we're hoping we stay stable for a few years, and so that we can just get all the reforms that we're going to work on in place with our new superintendent.
So, Carolyn, what I heard was that the county manager wants a 9% across the board cut this year for budget-wise. How hard is the school district actually hit? Because one of the things that when people say that, they go, oh, 9% across the board. Well, 9% across the board doesn't mean that it's 9% across the board necessarily, because you have certain functions that the county has to provide for. So, you know, if you have, for instance, your emergency services, they can't take a 9% cut necessarily. So it becomes a legal issue. So sometimes it seems like, well, it doesn't sometimes seem like it. It's the school district. How hard are they really hit? Because they're probably going to see more than 9%.
Yeah, we are. Actually, our cut is $400 million, which is a 20% cut of our budget. 20% is huge. It's mind-boggling how this is going to happen. But I will tell you that in the cuts, we're asking all staff and that means all staff, to take an 8.75% reduction in pay.
Including the superintendent?
Yes, including the superintendent. Bravo. So, I mean, this is very serious, and my message really is that we can't do this without student achievement suffering hugely, and that we would like the governor and the legislators to find another way to address the budget cuts. One of the things I think that they should seriously consider is not sunsetting the taxes that are due to sunset on June 30th. As simple as that would really mitigate some of the impact of these cuts. But we've done $375 million worth of cuts over 3 years. This is $400 million in 1 year. It is huge to our budget, and it's going to be devastating to our education system. And it will take decades to recover. We won't recover quickly.
Do you think that the reason why, I mean, I know you're not a politician, but this is...
Yes, I am.
This is... Okay. There you go. Good. Honest answer. Oh,
You're supposed to be an educator, not a politician.
We've had two...
I'm an educated politician.
There you go. Isn't that kind of an oxymoron?
Yeah, probably
okay,
so.
That was a low blow. But one of the things that, what do you think about a lot of certain legislators, not all of them, have taken a campaign promise to not increase taxes. And some of them see that by, like you said, not allowing the taxes to sunset, that there are certain conservative individuals out there that would say that that's actually increasing taxes, so they've broken their campaign promise. What would you say to those individuals?
I say we make campaign promises based on the times that we're in, and then when you get into the position, you take a look at what the real situation is. Sometimes you have to change your mind, and I think you can justify that by explaining why this is the best thing to do. If you can meet...
Sorry to disturb you, but is that similar to George Bush Sr. saying no more new taxes and then raise the taxes?
It probably is, but here is the thing. I know that Governor Sandoval really believes that what he's doing is the right thing to be doing for our economy. There's no question in my mind about that. I disagree with him, and if he looks at how seriously hurting we are, I think he would reevaluate. I just don't think we can do it. And in addition to which, his sweep of our debt reserve will result in increased taxes. So how he can say he's not increasing taxes because he's not doing it, but he's doing something that causes somebody else to do it. A equals B, B equals C, therefore A equals C. He's raising taxes.
So what do you think about the new superintendent? Your honest opinion, the non-politician one.
I'm very impressed with him so far, but I have to grant that we're in the early phases of getting to know him. He has some plans to make some changes at the district. I applaud the things that he's planning to do, and I look forward to hearing more about them as he moves them forward. I think time will tell whether he actually improves student achievement. We don't know yet. But he did come in understanding that we were asking for a reform of the district, and he's planning to do that, and he's moving on that front. So we applaud that.
When is your trustee meetings, Carolyn? We
meet the second and fourth Thursday of every month, except for some months when they fall on the wrong day, like Thanksgiving. We adjust that at 4 o'clock at 2832 East Flamingo.
Do you get a lot of parent participation in those trustees?
We get a fair amount of parent participation, yes.
And what's the major thing that the parent is upset about up in arms?
Right now?
Right now, yeah.
The budget cuts.
The budget cuts. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure, as always.
And thank you for taking the superintendent's place at the last minute. We really
not
appreciate
a problem.
that. Jim?
No, other than that, thanks a lot for coming in. I appreciate it.
Okay.
That's Carolyn Edwards, who's the president of Clark County School Board trustee. And maybe in May, we might get the superintendent to come on. And Carolyn's been on so many times. I know she's not the one with all the balls in the Clark County School District. I'm sure there's supposed to be a lot of people with balls in there. Because you know how my mind works, Jim. I'm going to start thinking people are just scared. Yeah. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Until next week, and we haven't had that stuff posted yet, but we will.